Welcome to another of our candidate forums offered by the Progressive Democrats of LaPorte County. Tonight, we're very excited to be talking about what, is not always the most exciting topic, but people do have questions about it. And so we're really happy that the Democratic candidates for County Assessor and Michigan Township Assessor are joining us. And so we can try to channel all of those questions to the candidates and get some good answers for voters. But first, I want to introduce Dr. Vijay Cora, who is our Democratic Party chair for LaPorte County, and give us a little introductory statement.
Thank you very much, Deb. And first of all, let me thank you and the Progressive Democrats for organizing these forums. And this helps people get to know our candidates and know what they stand for. And I have always mentioned that when we are electing somebody or when we are choosing somebody, we are almost like we are hiring that person to do a job. And for this particular job, the assessor's job, it is extremely important that they know what they're doing, because there is some technical expertise that goes along with this job. And I'm proud to say that Mike Schultz, whom I have known for many, many years, knows what he's doing and does a phenomenal job. And he hires good people to help him and protects the interests of the taxpayers, as well as to make sure that there is enough revenue coming to the county to take care of the county's business. And he is joined today by Brent, who is a bundle of energy. Is the youngest person on our team. And so I want to thank both Mike and Brent for stepping up, putting their name on the ballot, and they want to serve the people. And they have the expertise, the skills, the knowledge to do this job very well. And I'm very proud of them. And I'm confident that they're going to win and do a phenomenal job serving the people of LaPorte County. With that, I'm going to turn it back to you, Deb.
All righty. Okay, thank you. All right, whoops, hang on, I'm going to put you. So this is, so great. Welcome, Mike Schultz and Brent Banic. And I'd like to start, if each of you could just kind of give a little background. I know, Mike, you've been around, in county government for a long time. Tell us how long, what you've done, and, why you think it's important to run again.
Thank you. Well, I'm in an office now that isn't term limited, which is a good thing, because if you're doing your job, it's really an administrative office. It's not a political office. So to change horses in the middle of the stream, if you have no experience, is not a good thing. I'm kind of the dean of the elected officials that are in LaPorte County now. I was on the council for 6 years. I was auditor for 4 years. So I had 10 years, and then I left county government for 8 years. I came back and ran against a lady from Center Township for the Center Township position. I won that. And then after 2 years, they did away with the position because the townships weren't large enough. Michigan Township was the only one large enough to remain. And the referendum kept that township as a township assessor. So then I've been in the assessing office now for 12 years. I think it's good to have some continuity, because I tend to know what the auditor's role is, what the treasurer's role is, council commissioners. So I bring some continuity to all the other newly elected officials, that I can help them out so they don't so much struggle with their positions. So, and it all starts in the assessor's office. That's where the assessments, the numbers come up to go to the auditors and then set the rates, and we go from there. So I think, and what I think my main goal, or not my goal, but my main, what I'm proud of most is that I'm accessible to the public. I belong to so many different community groups, and I get around. I go to festivals, whether it's election year or not, and I'm constantly asked questions. They always say, "I don't want to bother you because you're not on duty," blah blah blah. I don't mind answering questions or getting answers for them. I even answer them on holidays, vacations. You never hear on my phone that I'm out of the office this week, because when I'm on vacation, I still take the questions and send them to the office for answers. So I'm really proud of my accessibility to the public to get the answers that they're looking for.
That's awesome. Yeah. And one of the very few people who actually know the answers to all those questions. It seems like one of the most mysterious, positions in county government, auditor as well. Like, who knows what okay. So, all right. So Brent, so now just to clarify, Mike's running for county assessor.
Yes.
But in LaPorte County, one of our townships, Michigan Township, has enough something such that it requires its own assessor. So only that one township in the county. And so right now then Brent is running for that. And so Brent, tell us your experience, tell us why you're running, and tell us your background, tell us why this is so important.
Absolutely. Thank you again for providing this platform for us. I think it's very important for all the candidates to have something like this. But my name is Brent Banic. I'm running for the Michigan Township Assessor's Office. Not for county assessor. We had a few people think we were running against each other, but yes, I'm up in Michigan Township, which is northern Michigan City. And they do have their own office, which I think is very important because there's a lot of development going on. It's very dense, a lot of high-end assessments going on there. So it's great that we have one office and their own staff focusing on that area to make sure everything's correct. LaPorte County is a huge county. So Mike takes care of all the other townships and I take care of Michigan Township, but we're a great team. But some of my professional background, I haven't been in government for however many years Mike has, but I do want to tell everyone that I have been in government for a few years now, and I first started working in local government in 2014. I actually worked for the maintenance department. And yeah, I was cleaning toilets and taking out trash and mowing lawns, but I'm saying that because I am a county worker that has worked their way up the ladder. So I worked in maintenance for 3 years and I was able to land an internship at the LaPorte County Assessor's Office. And after I graduated from college, I attended Purdue Northwest. I graduated with a business management degrees and human resource. So after I graduated college, I was still working in the LaPorte County Assessor's Office. I was able to get a full-time position. And within the first year, I was able to land a management position. And I was able to acquire a level 3 certification, which is the highest certification in Indiana for assessing. And so I got my level 3 certification, and then I became a supervisor within the LaPorte County Assessor's Office. But my experience with local government, I'm very thankful for working that maintenance position for so many years, because at first I thought it was just getting me through college and I was just doing my thing. But really, I learned so much about local government, what every single office did. I wasn't just taking out their trash, I was networking with them. I was figuring out what their roles and duties were. So I think that is an advantage that I have on a lot of other candidates, is that I understand local government. I understand what every office does and the function of them. So I am a supervisor at the LaPorte County Assessor's Office. And I think the transition of leadership and workload will be seamless when I'm elected for the Michigan Township office. I decided to run because I am a resident of the Michigan Township or in Michigan Township. So I know there's some issues and things not picked up, and I don't think that's fair to the residents of Michigan Township. With my experience and knowledge, I have the opportunity to make sure that the people of Michigan Township are being treated fair and equitable, and that's all the assessor's office does. We need to make sure everyone's being treated fairly. Another reason I decided to run was because I've been working in local government since 2014, kind of grew up in local government, and I wasn't seeing much change or representation. So here I am, I signed up, and I'm here to pave the way for the communities that I belong to and pave the way for younger generations to be involved in local government and If sign up, do it, do your research, get that experience and make changes that will actually impact us.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. So, all right. So now we're going to try to stay out of the weeds, but, find some information out. So every year you do an assessment of all the property in the county. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, and we use the fair market value system. The whole state was required to switch over to that system, I don't know, many years ago now. But and so you base that assessment on the price that a willing seller is willing to pay, which is the fair market value. So you make that determination based on sales records, I presume. And so I guess my question is, and this came from me from someone else who wanted to know this this answer. In other states, the assessments are done like over 3 years with a look back to create an average over the last 3 years, instead of doing it every year. And so I wonder why we don't do something like that. I'm considering, the volatility of the housing market up and down, or even longer than 3 years. Why do we do it every year instead of trying to reflect, the variability of housing prices?
Well,
Yeah, Mike,
when,
you start. Yeah.
when we do it's actually called, we do a reassessment, and that is over a 4-year period. We split the county up in residence, in ag properties, in industrial commercial. So a fourth of the parcels, and there's roughly 68,000 parcels of land in LaPorte County. So we split that up into fourths, and we do a fourth every year, and as a reassessment, we call it. And that's actually going out boots on the ground, taking a look at the, did they add something? Did they take away something? And everything's divided up into neighborhoods. So that's what we mean by we do an assessment every year. We do a reassessment for a fourth of the county every year over a 4-year period. Now with the sales, those are based on like neighborhoods, and neighborhoods can be rather large. It doesn't mean just like your neighborhood, a 4-block area, but like Potawatomi Park could still be a neighborhood. Michigan City has, like on the west side, those are quite large neighborhoods as far as the market goes. But what we do is we also assess as market value in use, which is different than just market value. Because if I have a residence, just regular stick-built residential type home, but I have a doctor's office in there, it's going to be assessed as a commercial property versus a residence. So their assessment would be higher than just a normal residence in that same neighborhood.
I see. So you don't, in fact, assess every home every year, every property every year?
No, we
Okay.
don't. We don't look at each individual, but what we look at, like in similar neighborhoods, see what the sales are in those neighborhoods, and then we apply a market factor, market adjustment. So if their assessments say 100,000, and it looks like it warrants a 5% increase, so we would put like 105% market adjustment that would raise the assessment to what the market should bear. Now, keep in mind, we can go from 90% to 110% on these adjustments. And we try to stay on the lower end. I'd rather chase the market than get ahead of it. So if you look at your assessment today and what the market's willing to pay for that property, you'll find that our assessments are lower than what the market is, but yet we fall within the guidelines that the state mandates that we do for assessments for the ratio study to pass.
Okay, so I still have a clarifying question. So even if you're not assessing every house every year, are you adjusting the assessment value of every house every year?
Yes. So there's we trend every year.
Right. So you're not assessing everything, but you're kind of extrapolating the assessment that you do onto the rest of the homes.
Yeah. So cost to market ratio. So the cost is never going to change within those 4 years. The cost tables stay the same. Your house replacement cost new is the same, but every year we look at the sales. Every sale that happens comes through our office, the assessor's office. So we see those sales every year, and we look at our assessments and our sales in those neighborhoods. And if there needs to be an adjustment up or down, we have to make those
I see.
to fall
And so-
within that range that Mike was talking about.
Okay, so what about the idea of doing it like every 3 years instead of every year, adjusting
So
the assessment?
Yeah, so the problem with that is that sometimes, like with our housing market, it's been so crazy, there can be a huge increase, which could cause a bigger tax bill. And that's just not doable for the taxpayers. It's a huge impact on them. And it's really a surprise, which it's better that we trend it every year. So if our housing market is going up, they will see that slowly.
Yeah,
I see.
because if we're giving a 4, 5, 6% increase every year, if not, you could get like an 18, 20% increase in that third year to catch
I
up
see.
to the market. So it's, and we've always had the question, well, yeah, but what if the market drops? What about my assessment? Well, if our assessment's higher than the market, the assessment will drop as well. But that's why we try to stay below the market and behind the market, so we're not making huge swings one way or the other.
I see. Excellent. All right. Thank you very much. That is very clarifying. Okay. So I have a question for you, Brent, because you're in Michigan Township and you mentioned about the need for a good assessor there because of all the development. So when there is new development planned, let's say, they say it's a $500 million development, then there's, property tax abatement deals. And so I don't want to get too complicated here, but are you making that assessment when someone says it's a $500 million development? What does that mean as far as what the township could bring in taxes from that development? And for a moment, we'll forget about any abatements.
Yeah, so we will assess once the building's complete. So we don't deal with the abatements themselves. The economic development, the auditor deal with that type of work. So when they say 500 million or whatever, that is an estimate that they're predicting the economic development or the people that are doing the abatements at the auditor's office.
What's
So
going to
you
be,
Go ahead.
what will be unique here is that Brent's office and my office will work hand in hand on projects like that. I have a commercial supervisor right now that we usually handle Michigan townships like Blue Chip. We've given some figures on the South Shore development there right at 11th Street between 10th and 11th. We've given a number on the You Are Happy or
You are beautiful.
You are
Yeah.
beautiful. We're happy.
And happy.
And so we will work with Brent's office because he has a smaller staff,
Mhm.
but we'll work in tangent. Really the assessor, the only thing we oversee in Michigan Township is if the work wouldn't get done, it falls back on the county assessor to finish it. So therefore, we think with Brent there and having worked with our office, it's going to be a lot easier time for everyone to get along. And Brent won't be afraid to pick up the phone and ask for help if there's an issue. And my staff has already said that they will work with him and his staff. Right now, we're training 2 new people that he will have on staff in Michigan Township. So he's not going to be out there swimming by himself initially. But yeah, we're here to help them and they're there to help us because we don't really like to go into Michigan Township and have to measure all the homes and the businesses, because in Michigan City, I do have anything south of Cool Spring Ave. That's Cool Spring Township. So I've got the Lowe's and the Menards and some of the newer developments, but he's getting a lot of the new hotels and convention type centers. So we'll work hand in hand to see that it gets done on time and fairly.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so as he was saying, I have a smaller staff. I have a staff of 4. So we're going to be getting those 12-story hotels and convention centers and stuff like that. And I will have a commercial supervisor in my office, but I'm very thankful for the relationship that I have with Mike and staff there and the supervisors there. So we will work hand in hand if we need help. I know there's development going on in Cool Spring as well, possibly with the Marquette Mall and stuff. We are right there in Michigan City, so sometimes it's easier for us to go out and measure and help him out too. So, but we will go out and do that stuff. But sometimes we need help, more people on the ground.
Okay, so I am curious to know a little bit more about how you assess commercial property, but I want to like put that aside for a minute because
Okay.
I think one of the more important questions is the increase in assessed value of homes, particularly in Michigan City, where during, you know, what is kind of a revitalization, or I mean, this is a huge development happening. You know, I mean, people, I feel like we're not going to recognize Michigan City in a few years. It just will look so different with all the new developments. So I guess my question is, you know, what about the person who lives on, you know, Manhattan Street, who has a, you know, a modest home? Is their property tax going to go through the roof because of the double track and the other huge developments that are happening in Michigan City?
So we have to look at, we can't change anything without sales. So there's no way of saying if the assessment will increase until we have those sales. So how this works is we assess every home, but you're put into neighborhoods. So a house on Gardena or Manhattan will not be compared to the houses on Lakeshore Drive. So as we see the sales increase in those neighborhoods, we have to make sure that our assessments line up with those sales, and we do that in mass. So when it comes to tax dollars, when we do our assessing, we don't see, hear, or try to fill a budget. So it really just depends on what the budget is for Michigan Township and how they're going to split up those tax rates. But we always make sure that our homes are within 10% of what your house would sell for in that area. That is what our job and our role is in the assessor's office.
So can we dig a little more? Go ahead. Can I just ask, just to follow up, can I ask a little bit more about how you'll make those neighborhoods? Because again, if, you know, the Manhattan neighborhood over, you know, by the old hospital, even, you know, that area, is that, I mean, where is the dividing line? How, is there some consideration for, you know, the income of people who live in those neighborhoods, you know, to keep them out of the same neighborhood as the, you know, places on 11th Street or Washington that are going to get knocked down and rebuilt with big commercial, you know, whatevers?
Well, unfortunately, we can't look at a neighborhood and say, oh, that's the lower income, so now we have to assess it. Everyone has to be treated fairly as far as how we're assessing those neighborhoods. Now, their neighborhood may go up 1% or it may go down 2% depending on the sales. But we can't look at the demographics of the neighborhood from that standpoint, the social economic type thing. But we can draw, like I said, on the west side, we have drawn some neighborhood boundaries, and those are drawn by basically sales and looking at similar type homes. But over here, they're selling for, you know, 12% higher than they are over here. So that's how we try to split the neighborhoods on the sales. And there's some misnomer with the caps because residential is capped at 1%. Now, that doesn't mean that's all the higher their taxes can go. They can't pay.
Sorry,
more
I don't
than,
want to interrupt. I hate to interrupt, but could you say 1% of what? Just to be clear.
1% of the assessment.
Okay.
So the assessment can go up 10%, but when they pay taxes, they can't pay more than 1% of the gross of that assessment. So their taxes could go up 2 or 3%, but it's capped at 1% of the tax, you know, what they can actually pay with taxes. So Michigan City is kind of unique because their tax rate's so high over here, meaning high over 3%, that just about everybody's at their cap, because commercial properties are capped at 3%, rentals are capped at 2%. So it's the the more we raise the assessment doesn't necessarily mean the more that the city can raise revenue, because that is capped with their budgets, but then they also get from the budget department downstate a growth factor. And this year, I think it was over 4%. So the budget can grow by over 4%, say, that then they can raise the funds through the increased assessments, but it doesn't mean if I increase your assessment by 10%, that they can raise all of that in revenue 10%. It's capped. It's a very complicated formula that the state uses. And Yvonne here in LaPorte or Michigan City is very well versed in budgets. She worked with Chuck Oberly back in the days, so she knows what she's doing. But my assessments, yeah, they do play somewhat in the increased taxes, but there's other factors that also play into it.
I see. And so to some extent, the amount of home sales kind of like juices up the assessment, doesn't it? I mean, as houses turn over more rapidly, then, you know, that contributes to an increased assessment.
Yeah, and in this market's crazy because there
Right.
are some homes that we would have never thought in our wildest dreams would have sold for what they're selling for. And they're not just tearing them down, they're renovating them. And a lot of them are getting turned into Airbnbs,
Right.
because under the current law, you only have to live in your home to get the homestead for 6 months, 1 day. So you can rent it out the rest of the year. So during the summer months, you know, when you can get the high dollar towards the beach, Sheridan Beach area, you know, they're making money off this property. But yet then in the wintertime, if they choose to live there, they're getting the benefit of the homestead exemption.
So, and I do have a question about this, and I know this isn't exactly your department because it's the auditor who approves homestead exemptions. But, you know, when you look at the back of that application, it says any rooms that are income producing will not be included in this homestead exemption. And so I called about it and asked, and I just really didn't get any answers. And I thought, geez, if this is an Airbnb, how do you get to claim the homestead exemption? I mean, I know that provision was originally intended for a home that has a beauty salon in it or a garage, a mechanic's garage in their house. But to me, the language seems pretty clear. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, we don't get a clear answer from the Department of Local Government Finance down in Indianapolis, because we would like a more definite definition of an Airbnb, and truly, why do they get the 1% just because they live in it for 6 months, 1 day? And it just doesn't seem right that they're making, I know places in the island in LaPorte that are getting $600 and $700 a night, for a weekend. Well, that's pretty good money to rent your house out. You're going to live into it 6 months, in 1 day. But we don't get a good answer from the state yet. They're still trying to figure it out as well. How should we be treating these properties?
Right. And there's nobody who really verifies that they live there 6 months in 1 day. I mean, you just say you do.
Basically, the only way we can catch them, Illinois and Florida are really two good states that monitor their homesteads and frequently call or send a letter saying Joe Smith just got a homestead. Do they have a homestead in Indiana? And at one time, there was a company that was contracted to the auditor's office that would go and check this stuff out. It brought quite a bit of money back in because they were allowed to go back the 3 years and recoup the money they lost.
Nice. And because, the county has the budget, and this is, X number of dollars they have to collect that gets divided among all homeowners, right? Then that reduces the burden on, other homeowners, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Okay, good.
So Brent's going to be the one really fighting with that. I have pockets in the county, but Brent's got Lakeshore Drive. He's got other areas within Michigan City that have taken off now and are doing these Airbnbs. And the prices of the homes used to be like 120, and they skyrocketed to 360 now because people, and it's usually from the Illinois areas. We got a lot from California coming in. It's cheap property for them. So what needs to be figured out downstate is how do we keep those that are just using their homes in those areas as it's my home? I'm not wanting to sell it for 360 right now. I want to live here. This is my home. How do we keep them in their homes when the market, and it's an outside market that is causing the increases to skyrocket? So that's the issue we fight with, and try to work with our legislators to say, what are we going to do to curb this so people aren't losing their homes?
Right. Geez. Okay. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about the appeals process. That's, on the minds of many people who, who feel like the assessment is too high and they can appeal. And maybe you could just kind of give us kind of a quick, rundown of the process and, when you should, bother trying and when when it's, I don't know, when it's hopeful that you might get a change in the assessment.
So we send out a Form 11. Mike puts it on a bright green piece of paper, which you can't miss it. But there's also an appeal form with the Form 11. And it'll show your current assessments and then your old assessment to see the change. And you have 45 days to appeal that. And we look at all the appeals. We always tell people that appeal or call in and question it to talk to a realtor, talk to someone that they trust to see what their property is worth on the open market. Because that, at the end of the day, is what matters. Is we want to make sure that you're being treated fair and equitable. That value on your Form 11, that new value for the following year to be taxed on. So we want to make sure that is within market. So we always suggest to people, hey, do you have an appraisal? Did you just buy the house? Things like that. The evidence that they can bring is sales with similar homes in their area, or an appraisal if they just bought it. So those are the things that we always encourage the taxpayers to give to us or tell us about if there's something wrong with the property, or if they remove something from the property. That's how their assessment can change. But if they don't agree with our value, they have the opportunity, and we always go through all their information, make sure that the bathroom count's okay, just everything on their property record card is correct. Everything that we have picked up and everything that is assessed. So if we can't come to a value and there's just no budging there, they have the opportunity to go in front of the Property Tax Board of Appeals and present their case to them on and their evidence of what they think the value of their home is.
We've been accused of, well, we really don't want you to file an appeal. I'm probably one of the few counties in the state that send the appeal form with the assessment form, because you can go online and get it, but not everybody has access to that, or it's not always the easiest to maneuver to find that. So like we tell it's not my assessment per se. I don't lose sleep at night if I had to lower your assessment $100,000. It's just a number. And we're not always correct, but we will definitely, when you come in, we will go over everything. And if it needs to go down, we'll go down. But now there's times when we didn't get something and it could go up. We usually don't do that until the following year. No, my staff's been trained to treat the taxpayer with respect. And like I said, we go over it, we explain it. When I got in here 12 years ago, we had over 10,000 appeals. Of course, we had a mess back then. This year, we had maybe around 500 appeals. And probably half of those were settled before they went to the Property Tax Board of Appeals. And then another maybe half of those were settled again. We'll go out because we have to, anything over 5%, I have to have the evidence. So we'll usually get an appraisal done. And again, we don't care what the appraiser comes back with. We don't discuss a number. If he comes back with a lower number, go for it. We'll settle it now and get it. If he comes back with a higher number, we'll discuss it. And most likely, not all the time, but sometimes we'll use that number, but most of the time we have it as evidence for the increase in next year.
And one thing I want to say is that you don't need a tax rep to appeal. We're not that intimidating, but you can come to the office and we can have a conversation and we can educate you. Or a lot of times I expect you going into this office with the appeals because I won't take office in time to be able to change things or relook at them. So when I see appeals, I sometimes think, okay, well, maybe there's a problem in this area, or there needs to be a new neighborhood, or why are there all these issues? So that is a strategy I'm going to use. I'm not going to get defensive. I'm not going to be angry that you're appealing at me. I'm going to look at this information. If you're saying that this doesn't align with what you're seeing in your area with sales, then maybe there is an issue. And we're here to help. We are here to help. One of the goals in that I have in my term is to provide a way to educate the taxpayer. Government should be a resource, and it should not be a boxing ring every time you go to a government office to try to get an answer. I'm here to educate. I'm here to listen. I'm a representative in your area for this field, and I'm here to hear you out. So I want to provide some kind of way to educate the taxpayers or to educate any professionals in the field that need help. And I'm here to listen. This is a mass appraisal system. So we have that area, that 10, 20% to have some air. So, and that's mass appraisal. It's not perfect. We're not, appraising your one individual home. So when it comes to the appeal process, I don't want people to feel like it's intimidating or it needs to be a fight. We're here to listen. We're here to educate, and it's a mass appraisal system. We understand that.
Great. Okay, great. I appreciate that. It's a very, very clear answer. So my next question is about commercial appraisals or assessments. I'm sorry. And I guess, just an overarching question is, again, if we have this budget and it gets divided among all the property owners, some business, some rentals, some residential, and we have a lot of abatements offered by the economic development councils or cities, whatever. Can you tell us, like, compared to other counties, do we have a lot of tax that flows onto the shoulders of residential homeowners because of abatements in the commercial area?
Me to answer that.
Yeah, the former auditor would love to answer that.
Our group doesn't really dwell in that, the Association of Indiana Counties with the assessors group, but we have, I don't know, 3 or 4 TIFs here. We've got them in LaPorte. That's, there's a need for it to an extent, but I don't like to see TIFs just put money aside, because that's what can hurt the residential. Because what are you doing for their sidewalks? What are you doing for, beautification of some of their areas? Michigan Boulevard, they kind of spent some money down there to do some of this, but I think TIFs are really meant to pay off bonds and loans and stuff, not to act as a bank and hold the money and look for a project. At times I think maybe they should take some of the money, and I think they can do it now, is give it back to the schools or certain areas if they feel maybe they have too much. But the rules are changing on the TIFs. I don't get that active in them. I do sit on the LaPorte Economic Development Board over there. We don't, I can't remember many that we've given, but I do prefer having abatements. I sat on a group that we gave the Westville properties, where the old Roundy's, the big warehouse was. They took a 5% abatement, and it's about ready to end, to help them get started. I'm a big fan of, I'll help you get started, and as long as you're not struggling, and then it's time to kind of go out on your own and pay your fair share. I understand that you need these incentives to get people in and hopefully keep them here, But there's other factors than just taxes. I don't think taxes are the number one issue why someone will not locate in an area. There's much, much more to that.
Well, and I do have to mention that I'm always a little concerned about those abatement agreements with city councils because the abatement is given in exchange for a promise to create X number of jobs. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. And I believe it's incumbent upon the city councils or whoever granted that abatement to monitor it and take it away if they have not held up their end of the deal. But I don't think often they do.
Yeah, I agree, because I've shown some concern for a couple of companies out in the county that had these abatements. And from what I could tell through the assessments, things weren't coming along. So I would voice my concern to the economic development people in LaPorte County. And I said, I think it's time that you have a little chat with them, or maybe they need to come in and understand what we expect and how things need to get done in order to keep receiving this. So I monitor them to an extent, especially just if they said they're going to add, $20 million to their assessment and we don't see anything going. Like I said, I will contact the economic development people and voice my concern and say, I think we need to have a chit chat with everybody so everybody's on the same page again. I
think that's great. And there are, residential homeowners who really struggle, and particularly now that, sales values are going up, and that means your property taxes are going up. And yet, businesses are, allowed to, slip through the cracks and not, not do what they promised and not pay what their fair share. So,
and I agree. And that's usually the first thing we ask when they come in to appeal their assessment. Do you have all your exemptions? Because some of them didn't know they could have a blind exemption or a military. So we ensure they have all their exemptions first when we're looking, because they like to compare to the neighbors. Well, yeah, but your neighbor's getting a homestead, a military, a blind, and an age. That's why they're paying hardly next to nothing. They're entitled to those, but do you fall into the category to get any of them as well? And so we're there helping them as much as we can to get them to whatever we can figure out how to get their taxes down or the assessment lower. We don't hide anything. It's if it works for them, we'll go for it.
Great. So if you could, can you kind of list off those exemption opportunities?
Yeah, so there's the homestead exemption, which is the most important. It pretty much cuts your taxes in half. There was a mortgage, but I think that is
that goes away.
It goes away this year, but it's going to be added. That amount's going to be added onto the homestead. And then there's the blind, and then the military.
So that means if you're blind, is that
well,
blind means?
you only have to have a partial blind. You don't have to be completely blind. There's I don't know what the percentage is, but there's the blind, there's the age, and the age is based on your home assessment, and I think it's like 240 now. But if I raise it to 260 the following year, it can't bump you out of that. If you qualified once, you will stay qualified for the age. And then there's also an income, and I don't believe your Social Security is used in that formula. They have some veteran exemptions. They're disability veterans, so they go on a percentage how much you're disabled. And basically you just have to bring the paperwork up to the auditor's office, and they will let you know if you qualify, and you fill it out. And all these exemptions, if you fill them out before the end of the year, or you might have a week into the next year, you will get them for the following year, or next year. So anyone watching that says they think they might qualify for something, call the auditor's office. And if you do, you have to the end of the year to fill all that out to receive those next year.
Great. And so the age one you mentioned, so there's what is that? You have to be over a certain age, I presume.
Well, it's usually 65. And
Okay.
then it just, I think for a couple, you can't make over 40,000, and your assessment, I don't think, can be over 240,000. Now, if you're at 241, we'll figure something out to get you at the 240 so you qualify. Now, if you're at 287, I can't bring you to 240, but if you're in the ballpark, there's something, because assessments truly are, it's an opinion of value. And it's my opinion versus your opinion, but if you can convince me, hey, more power to you.
And these are all cumulative. You can have all of these exemptions.
Yes, I think on the military, there were some, I think you could have like the military, but maybe not the blind or something of that sort. But the problem with the state of Indiana, unless it's truthfully the homestead, that's the big one. The other, because like your mortgage exemption was $3,000. Well, that might be $30 in taxes. So they weren't large amounts, and some of the other exemptions, one is, and I think it might be the age exemption, it removed like $12,500 from your assessment. Again, you're not talking large numbers. The state probably needs to revisit all those exemptions. And with assessments going up, maybe the exemption numbers need to follow with that. They set a formula that if over 5 years, if the exemption or assessments go up 20%, then these exemptions should go up, 10% or something. So they kind of follow the trending market instead of sitting here and the market's here and, oh, look at that, my tax bill went up $387, but I get to save $30 in my mortgage exemption. It just, mortgages aren't what they used to be.
Right. And what agency does it? That's not a legislative thing, right? It's probably, is there some
No,
like.
it's legislative, but the Department of Local Finance administers it. But it's the legislature, because they're the ones that said, guess what? We're going to take away the mortgage exemption, but we're going to add that $3,000 to the homestead. So instead of $45,000, it goes to $48,000. So you're still going to see it next year, but it's just going to be in the increase of the homestead exemption and not so much the mortgage. Because your mortgage exemption, if you had two properties, you could put half on one property and half on another property. You didn't even have to have a mortgage. If you had a line of credit and it was recorded in the recorder's office, you didn't have to use it. But as long as your line of credit was at least $3,000, you qualified for a mortgage exemption, even though you truly didn't have what a mortgage was meant to be.
Geez. Okay. All right. That's enough of these like details. So, sorry. So you both have Republican opponents in this election. Is that right?
No, Brent doesn't have.
I do not.
You do not have Republican opponents. So, okay. Well, that's great. You don't have any opponent?
I do not.
Okay, terrific. And Mike, you do have a Republican opponent.
Yes, correct. And I call it a ballot filler. He has no appraisal experience, no real estate experience. He's an engineer with an IT degree. And his fame and claim is he can fix the glitches in my office. Well, I don't own the computer program. That's the company that calculates our assessment for us. So there's really not any glitches to fix on my part because I don't own those. And we have very few glitches. And if we do, it's usually fixed within a day. Like this last problem we had with the county upstairs, I wrote gross numbers, values to the auditor's office. They plug in everything, the abatements and all this stuff to come up with a net assessment. So when those rolled up there, I had nothing to do with the homesteads, nothing to do with the homestead supplementals. I am just giving you, here is my total gross assessment for this year. Do what you want now and chop it down to come up with the net. So even though it begins in my office, we run reports all the time to make sure what we're sending them is true and accurate, but it wouldn't have caused any of the problems that they had upstairs.
Right. And so I think a lot of people probably don't know, like, I know you're in this up to your eyeballs and you understand it, but a lot of people don't realize that this past year, there was a mistake in the LaPorte County property tax bills, and it wasn't calculated properly at the auditor's office. And so, I don't know, we paid, and then I assume someone will like, oh, they're going to send another property tax bill. Is that what's happening?
Well, it did get sent. The issue was, it was more than what we thought because everything was calculated correctly except the homestead supplemental, which is the 35% of what's left over after the homestead's removed, you get an additional 35% removed. Well, that didn't get calculated. It was frozen at last year's rates. So, but the issue was it wasn't as simple as, okay, let's just plug that in and go ahead. We're going to start redoing this. It changed tax rates in a lot of entities, especially probably out in the farm communities, because they're capped at 2%. Most of the townships aren't at 2%, but that's why it mattered, because now the rate, instead of 1.867%, could have gone up to 1.92%. And since it's not capped, it makes a difference. So that's why they had to recalculate and come up with new bills. Now, not everybody got a new bill, because if it didn't change at all, then there was no bill sent out. But if
Well, that's good to know, because I didn't get one, and I'm like, did I lose it?
then you're okay. Because
Okay,
I think
good.
like in the higher taxing units like Michigan, because most people are capped out at their 1% and 2% here. So that's probably why you didn't see it. But it was in the smaller communities, the smaller townships that weren't capped yet. But when they recalculated the tax rate, it either went up or went down.
All right, well, good. I'm glad you clarified that too. Okay, so believe it or not, we are almost out of time. And lots of great information, but I just want to give you both just a minute to just kind of say, I mean, Mike, I know you've got an opponent, and so you've got a campaign Facebook page or website, and I'm sure that you would appreciate people popping in to say hi and seeing if they can help you with your campaign. Where can people reach you?
Well, Brent's managing that for me. So if you want to tell
isn't
him.
that nice?
Yeah, so Mike has a Facebook page, reelect Mike Schultz for LaPorte County Assessor. If you have any other questions that wasn't answered in this forum, feel free to message Mike on Facebook or comment on the link that we shared, and he will definitely get back to you with an answer.
And you can use my regular Facebook page as well. That's under Michael Schultz. There are some Mike Schultzes in LaPorte County, but I go by Michael on Facebook. I go by Mike on the ballot, but they can go to either site and we can answer the questions or concerns, or if they want to heap praise on me, they can do that too.
Okay, and I'm sure they could probably just call you, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what is your phone
I can give
number?
you that number.
Yeah.
219-608-1321.
Great. Okay. Well, I guess I
Or
was
text
thinking they
me,
would call your office, but that doesn't sound like your office number. But
No.
So what's the office number too?
The office number is 219-326-6808, and my extension is 2390.
Terrific. And I know you can go to the website and find that too, the
Yes.
LaPorteCounty.gov.
But most people, because I'm the first one on the website, Assessor, we get a lot of the questions, but my staff is so well trained that we know where that question should go to instead of giving them the runaround.
How nice. That's awesome. Well, thank you. I mean, and I just want to say how much I appreciate your long time commitment to county government. I mean, you know, it makes a big difference having someone like you in there for all these years who knows what's happening and as you say, remains accessible. So you're not, you know, sitting in a little bubble.
Well, Brent can follow in my footsteps. You know, people say, oh, he's a career politician. I don't look at it that way, because, you know, you got commissioners and council that set policy. I have to follow policy. And so basically what you have is someone experienced doing these jobs to see that we keep moving forward. And like, I don't treat myself as just a politician, you know, more of a servant of the taxpayer, because I'm there for them.
And one thing I want to say is a lot of people were kind of taken back when they said the assessor is an elected position. And I say, yeah, it is. But really, yes, we're politicians, we're elected, but we are professionals in this field. I mean, we deal a lot with realtors, appraisers, title companies. It's dangerous to have an administrator in this office that does not have experience. It can be really bad for our government. It is very important to have this experience, because things can go bad really badly. And in the assessing world, it is very important that we have someone that knows what they're doing, because we don't have time to train a new administrator, because when you are in office, that is our busiest time. We have to send stuff to the state, and then the taxing process starts. So if that person is not experienced, it could be really bad. So experience does matter. And Mike is a professional in this field. He may be a career politician, but he knows what he's doing, and he has experience with assessing, and he knows where his figures goes to the auditor's office, which he also served in. So it's very important that we have someone experienced like Mike in office.
Excellent. Okay, so I just want to wrap up by just encouraging everyone to become, let's see, let's put everybody on here. Let's see, there we go. And so just encouraging everyone to make sure that you're registered to vote. You can your voter registration, you can register, you can request an absentee ballot. You can find out where to vote and when to vote. And you can see who's on your ballot, all by going to the same website, which is indianavoters.com. And our last form, apparently I said the wrong address for the early voting site, so let me get it right this time. It is the 803 Wabash, a little strip mall where the county health department and treasurer are in Michigan City. Then it's 400 North and Johnson Road, the old Cool Spring Library branch. And then it's Wanata on Highway 30. And then the LaPorte County Courthouse or Complex?
I don't know if they're gonna, I think they were in the complex last time because there's just more room for them over there.
Yes. So which is the building behind the LaPorte County?
The jail building.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Well, great. Well, all right. So we're out of time, and I think we've got everything in we wanted. I so appreciate your both getting on here and giving us this explanation. It's a very nuanced position, and I appreciate you're really clarifying all these kind of mysteries about property assessment. So, and thanks everyone for coming. And our next forum will be on, it's this Thursday, September 29th at 6 p.m. And we will have State Representative Pat Boy and State Senator Rodney Pohl, as well as the Democratic candidate for State Treasurer, Jessica McClellan, who's just delightful, and she's from Bloomington. So that is a statewide race. So, all right, great. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you next time. Hopefully.